Lyra's closed fist crushed cartilage as it slammed into the human Darren's nose, the sickening crunch reverberating through the Galactic Academy hallway before a gush of crimson splattered across the immaculate tiles. But he didn't know the inferior Terran would get revenge for the humiliating beating, and that bullying a Deathworlder would spark a school-wide reckoning between humans and aliens that would change the course of the galaxy forever. At 19, Darren Roberts had beat out billions from across the Milky Way for a coveted slot at the Academy on planet Xenolith Prime. The fact he was a primitive human only sweetened the victory, a chance to prove Earth deserved a place at the universal table. But from the second he set foot in the prestigious institution, Darren had a bright red bullseye painted on his back. He was fresh meat for the advanced Pakled race that dominated the student body, their oversized egos matched only by a deep-seated loathing of any species they deemed lesser. And in their eyes, humans were the lowest of low. In an isolated hallway after orientation, it took only seconds for Lyra, a cruel and arrogant Pakled known across campus as the King of Mean, to zero in on the lone Terran. Lyra and his posse circled Darren like a pack of predators toying with cornered prey. Their forked tongues hissed guttural insults, degrading his kind as unevolved savages. He was shoved, taunted, sized up for a beating. Every human instinct howled at Darren to introduce Lyra's face to his knuckles and show him the primitive fury of a Deathworlder scuffle. But logic and discipline overpowered emotion and ego. Humanity had fought damn hard for a handful of seats at the Academy. He couldn't risk expulsion on day one by turning the hallway into a boxing ring, even if he knew he'd win. No, Darren would have to be twice as strong, twice as smart to survive in this alien world. And that started with walking away. "Enjoy your first day, monkey boy," Lyra sneered after him, his gang's cruel cackling reverberating down the hall. "I'm going to turn your time here into a living nightmare. You'll run home crying to your mama, back to that pathetic dirtball you crawled out of." Darren's jaw tightened, fists clenching as he fixed his gaze forward and swallowed the bitter torrent of rage churning in his gut. Lyra had no clue he'd just kicked the hornet's nest. He silently vowed right then to lay low and keep his cool while grinding twice as hard in every class to smoke their scaly alien asses on the scoreboards, to excel so hard and flex mental muscles so swole that the extraterrestrial elites would be forced to recognize his inherent worth as a Terran and representative of Earth. Darren was on a mission to prove human potential and carve out a much-needed place in the galactic pecking order for his species to thrive. But he also knew Lyra and his Pakled posse would quickly escalate the abuse if they thought him too cowardly to fight back. There'd be no end to the humiliating beatdowns in abandoned hallways, these xenophobic slurs slung across the classroom, or public displays of putting the ape in his place. When the time was right and witnesses were watching, he'd have to take a stand and show he wasn't to be fucked with. For now, though, head down, excel in class, win allies, bide time. Sooner than later, Lyra would fuck around and find out why you never bullied a human from a goddamn Deathworld. In the weeks that followed, Darren threw himself into his studies with relentless focus. The human poured sweat and blood into acing exams for his xenobiology and astrophysics classes. But it was in the mandatory physical and combat training courses that he truly shone. Darren's body was a weapon forged from eons of human evolution on a brutal Deathworld. His chiseled muscles and lightning reflexes were honed for maximum lethality by Earth's punishing gravity and cutthroat ecosystems where only apex predators survived. Darren dominated the fitness tests and combat sims, his scores leaving his Pakled classmates in the dust, while their soft, spoiled bodies struggled with grueling drills and arduous obstacle courses. The Terran's hardened physique and indomitable willpower let him crush every physical trial. He was a force of nature, raw human potential incarnate. But every victory painted an ever bigger bullseye on Darren's back for Lyra's cruel machinations. The seething Pakled couldn't stomach watching a primitive human humiliate his kind by effortlessly acing challenges that brought his own people to their knees. So Lyra and his lackeys escalated their xenophobic harassment into a ruthless sabotage campaign to quash the Terran's rising star. Darren would unlock his tablet to find his essay on quantum entanglement, deleted the night before it was due. He'd arrive at the chem lab to discover his titration equipment smashed. Whispers followed him in the corridors, vicious rumors spread by Lyra's gang to undermine his reputation. With every underhanded attack, Darren seethed with the urge to go apeshit and show the bullies what human fury really meant. But he grit his teeth and held back, refusing to sink to their level. Head down, excel harder, persevere. Tensions finally exploded in the hand-to-hand combat class. A hulking pack-led drill instructor stalked through the ranks of cadets like a shark sniffing for blood. "You maggots think you're hot shit," he barked, yellow eyes glinting dangerously. "Let's see what you're made of. Who's top dog? Spar for dominance." "I challenge the Terran." Lyra's voice pierced the charged air. A mix of excitement and unease rippled through the students. The grizzled instructor cocked his head, tongue flicking out to taste the tension. "Very well, cadet, let's see how the human stacks up. Positions." Darren and Lyra faced off on the mats, hackles raised and bodies coiled tight. The pack-lid hissed and flexed, trying to intimidate, but the human just cracked his neck and growled back, unimpressed. A feral electricity crackled between them, the culmination of weeks of animosity. At the whistle, they charged. Lyra came in hot with a vicious chop to the throat, fighting dirty from the start. But Darren swayed aside and countered with a knee to the ribs that folded his foe with a pained grunt. The pack-led snarled and whipped his serrated tail at Darren's face. The human caught the appendage an inch from his eye and wrenched it hard, sending Lyra stumbling. A human martial arts kick to the back sent the pack-led sprawling to his knees. But Lyra swept Darren's legs and regained his feet with snake-like agility. He pounced and rained heavy blows, his scaly fists smashing the human's face over and over until blood poured. The pack-led cackled with savage glee, believing himself victorious. Dazed and bleeding, Darren's world spun, but a lifetime of Deathworld grit had taught him how to endure agony and keep swinging. Snarling through crimson-stained teeth, the human caught Lyra's arm mid-punch and wrenched it into a brutal lock. Bones creaked. The pack-lid shrieked. Summoning a final surge of ferocity, Darren head-butted his alien adversary with a resounding crack. Lyra reeled back, his eyes rolling wildly. Both fighters crashed to the mat, chests heaving, utterly spent. The instructor's whistle pierced the stunned silence. "Stalemate! Hit the showers!" Battered and woozy, Darren slowly clambered to his feet. Swaying slightly, he offered a hand to Lyra, pulling the groaning packled up. For a fleeting moment, their eyes locked, not in hatred, but in the unspoken understanding of two warriors who had tested their mettle against a worthy rival. A touch of respectful camaraderie flickered across their bloody faces, but it vanished in an instant, replaced by customary sneers of contempt. The classroom emptied, leaving them alone. Lyra spat, greenish blood splattering the mat. "This changes nothing, human. You're still just a primitive ape. I'll put you in your place soon enough." Darren just cracked a feral smile. "Good luck with that, lizard boy. Earth apes bite hard. You haven't seen anything yet." The pack-led snorted and limped away, scales bristling. But he couldn't shake the unsettled twinge in his stomach, an instinctive inkling that he may have just kicked a sleeping giant, that Darren was more predator than prey. Days after the grueling clash that ended in a blood-spattered stalemate, a campus-wide announcement crackled over the comms. The Academy was holding a high-stakes, interspecies team competition, a brutal gauntlet designed to push cadets to their limits. The winning squad would earn glory, scholarships, and a fast track to plum assignments after graduation. Darren cracked a smile, his split lip still tender. Time to show the galaxy what humans were made of. But his grin quickly faded when the team assignments flickered onto the screens. The Terran's jaw dropped. Beside his own name, the next cadet listed was Lyra, along with two other pack-lids from his former gang. "You've got to be shitting me," Darren growled under his breath. The snarling alien faces glowering back at him across the briefing room said Lyra felt the same. The grizzled pack-lid drill instructor paced before them, his forked tongue flicking as he savored their barely concealed animosity. "You pups are in for a treat," he rasped. "The course is a meat grinder packed with hazards from a dozen Deathworlds, venomous plants from Xylox, quicksand pits from Gorzak, bone-shredding beasts from Kravos. You'll need every ounce of strength, speed, and wits to survive." Darren and Lyra locked eyes, hackles instinctively rising. But a single thought crystallized through the loathing. They were stuck in this shit show together. If they couldn't find a way to work as a unit, they'd get chewed up and spat out. Training was tense at first, the bitter rivals snarling and snapping at each other like enemy predators, forced to share a too-small cage. Progress was painfully slow, the team stumbling on even basic exercises. But gradually, grudgingly, they found their rhythm. Darren's knowledge of extreme survival, honed in Earth's harshest environments, proved invaluable in navigating the extraterrestrial threats. He guided the team in purifying water, laced with alien microbes, and scent-masking their trail from hungry predators. Lyra's cunning and natural leadership kept them moving forward when others would have buckled. The pack-led drove them hard, his taunting motivating them to dig deep and push past their limits. Slowly a fragile trust took root, their begrudging respect for each other's skills and strengths, chipping away at the wall of hate between human and pack-led. Then came the swamps of Xylox, a nightmarish morass teeming with ravenous beasts and choking vines that burned like acid. Picking their way through the fetid shallows, disaster struck. A startled yelp and a splash. Lyra was down, a barbed tendril coiled around his leg, dragging him into a sinkhole. Serrated teeth gnashed hungrily in the depths. "Lyra!" Darren roared. No thought, just instinct. He lunged and seized the pack-led's wrist. Straining with all his might, muscles bulging, the human hauled his alien comrade from the bog's clutches. They collapsed on a hummock, chests heaving, drenched in mud. Lyra stared at Darren, yellow eyes wide with disbelief. You saved me, why?" The human met his gaze, a wry smile cracking the grime on his face. "We're a team, aren't we? Gotta look out for each other." Something shifted in that moment, the last of their enmity melting away. An unspoken understanding passed between them. Out here, they were equals, warriors baptized in the same muck and blood. From that point on, they hit the course like a force of nature, moving as one, anticipating each other's needs. Darren and Lyra working in seamless tandem, human grit and pack-led cunning, an unstoppable combination. The team tore through challenge after grueling challenge, succeeding where even elite pack-led squads faltered. Jaws dropped and eyes boggled as the unlikely allies left the competition in their wake. Through the sweat, strain, and clashing scales and skin, a bond had been forged. The human and pack-led, once bitter foes, now an inseparable duo. A living testament to the power of two warriors who had seen each other's true mettle. But their greatest test still loomed ahead, a final trial that would push Darren and Lyra to the breaking point and beyond. A nightmarish crucible that would either cement their alliance or shatter it forever. The final stage loomed before them, a gauntlet promising either glory or crushing defeat. Darren and Lyra exchanged a look of grim determination, the weight of their tumultuous journey heavy on their shoulders. Around them, the competing teams fidgeted nervously, eyeing the ominous course ahead. A blaring klaxon shattered the tense silence. The race was on. Darren and Lyra burst from the starting line, their hearts pounding in sync as they charged into the unknown. The simulated rescue mission plunged them into a crumbling cityscape, a labyrinth of creaking metal and shattered glass. "Left," Lyra barked, his keen senses guiding them through the maze. Darren pivoted without hesitation, their trust now unshakable. But disaster struck with a thunderous boom. An explosion ripped through the structure, sending chunks of debris raining down. Darren lunged, shoving Lyra clear, but the force hurled the human backward, a wall of rubble crashing between them. "Darren!" Lyra roared, his voice raw with panic. No response, just an ominous silence broken by the groan of shifting wreckage. The pack-led stood frozen, torn between the finish line and his fallen friend. Victory was within reach, but at what cost? Lyra spat a curse and plunged into the debris field, claws scrabbling frantically at the rubble. "Hang on, Darren, I'm coming." Precious seconds ticked by, each one an eternity. Lyra heaved aside a slab of concrete, revealing Darren's battered form. The human coughed weakly, his eyes glassy with pain. "You came back," Darren croaked, a flicker of disbelief in his voice, but the race—" "Screw the race," Lyra growled, hauling him to his feet. "I've got you." They staggered through the crumbling gauntlet, Darren's arms slung over Lyra's shoulders. Around them, the simulated building shuddered and quaked, on the verge of total collapse. With a final burst of desperate speed, they hurled themselves clear just as the structure imploded in a maelstrom of dust and debris. They hit the ground hard, rolling to a stop in a tangle of limbs. Silence descended, broken only by their ragged breathing. Then a cheer went up from the sidelines. The other team had crossed the finish line victorious. Lyra slammed a fist into the dirt, a snarl of frustration tearing from his throat. He rounded on Darren, eyes flashing with anger born of disappointment. "We had it," the pack-led roared. "Victory was ours, and you ruined everything." Darren flinched as if struck. I didn't mean—" "You don't understand what this meant to me," Lyra hissed. "I needed this win. My family needed it, our honor, our future, all of it gone, because of you." The human's face hardened, his own temper sparking. "You think I don't know about needing to prove yourself, about being an outcast? I've fought tooth and nail for every scrap of respect back on Earth, and here, I'm nothing but a primitive joke to your kind." They glared at each other, chests heaving, years of resentment and prejudice boiling over. But as the adrenaline ebbed, their anger cooled to something raw, more vulnerable. "I couldn't leave you behind," Lyra said quietly. "Not after everything. You're more than just a human to me now. You're my friend." Darren swallowed hard, his throat suddenly tight. "I never thought I'd say this, but you're my friend too, Lyra. I'd rather lose with you than win with anyone else." A long moment passed, the weight of their words hanging in the air. Then Lyra cracked a rueful smile. "We're a couple of sorry saps, aren't we?" Darren laughed, wincing as his ribs protested. The sorriest, a human and a packlid, friends against all odds, who would have thought? They clasped forearms, a gesture of respect between warriors. But as the competition ground to a close and the other teams celebrated, a bittersweet realization settled over them. Their paths forward were murky and uncertain, the gulf between their worlds as vast as the space between stars. Lyra would face the fallout of his choices, the weight of his family's disappointment, and Darren still had an uphill battle ahead, a lone human in an alien universe. But in that moment, battered and bruised, they clung to the bond they had forged, a friendship that had weathered hatred, rivalry, and the crucible of combat. It was a fragile thing, a flicker of light against the vast darkness of a hostile galaxy. And yet it was a start, a glimmer of hope that two souls from different worlds could find common ground, that maybe, just maybe, they could make a difference. Darren and Lyra stood shoulder to shoulder, watching the alien sun set over the academy grounds. The future stretched before them, unwritten and unknown, but they would face it together, come what may. Months had passed since Darren and Lyra's fateful competition, the bond they'd forged through blood and hardship, still raw and resonant. But duty and destiny pulled them in different directions, Darren rising as a respected figure among his human peers, while Lyra ascended the ranks of Packlid Command. Darren strode through the bustling academy atrium, his thoughts churning with conflicting loyalties. A group of high-ranking Packlid officials beckoned him into a shadowed alcove, their faces grave. "We have a matter of utmost importance to discuss," the lead official rasped, his forked tongue flicking nervously. "The truth behind our sudden interest in human cadets." Darren's hackles rose, instinct warning him of a coming storm. "I'm listening." "Earth is not merely a death world, it is a target, a prize to be seized." Ice flooded Darren's veins as the true scope of their machinations unfurled. The Packlids, in alliance with a cadre of rapacious species, sought to subjugate his homeworld, to strip it of resources and biodiversity, crushing humanity beneath their might. "We need an inside man," the official hissed. "A spy to unveil Earth's weaknesses. You will be that instrument." Rage and revulsion warred within Darren, his fists clenching white-knuckled. To betray his own kind, to aid in their destruction, it was unthinkable. But a treacherous whisper slithered through his mind. Could he truly turn his back on the new life he'd built, on the acceptance and accolades he'd fought so hard to earn among the stars? Bile rising in his throat, Darren gave a curt nod. "I'll consider it." The officials melted back into the shadows, leaving him alone with the weight of worlds on his shoulders. Darren had to know if Lyra was a part of this heinous plot, if their friendship had been a lie from the start. Jaw clenched, he went to confront the one being who might understand his turmoil. He found Lyra on the command deck of a Packlid warship, resplendent in the trappings of power. But there was no warmth in the alien's yellow eyes, only the cold calculation of a conqueror. "I know of the invasion," Darren growled, his voice raw. "How could you not tell me? I thought we were friends." Lyra's scales rippled, a sign of agitation. "My duty comes before all else, even you, human." "Don't do this, Lyra. Invading Earth will only breed more hatred and bloodshed. We can find another way." The Packlid's gaze hardened, immovable as stone. "The wheels are already in motion. I will lead the charge, and your people will submit. There is no other path." Anguish and fury roiled in Darren's gut, acid on his tongue. In that moment he knew what he had to do, even if it cost him everything. As the invasion fleet surged towards Earth, Darren made his move. Hijacking a shuttle, he rammed it into the flagship's reactor core. The resulting explosion tore through the Packlid armada, shredding hulls and sowing chaos. Darren clawed his way through the smoke and flames, the screams of the dying filling his ears. He found Lyra pinned beneath a girder, the life leaking out of him in rivulets of green. "You fool," Lyra gurgled, blood flecking his lips. "You've doomed us all." Darren cradled his former friend, tears cutting through the grime on his face. "I had to save my home, my people." Understanding dawned in Lyra's dimming eyes, a final flicker of the bond they once shared. "You humans, always so strong, so brave. I was wrong to doubt you." The Packlid's breath rattled in his chest, each word an agony. "Don't let this be the end, Darren. Fight for peace, for a future where our kinds can stand as one." Lyra shuddered and went still, his weight heavy in Darren's arms. The human howled his grief and rage to the uncaring stars, the burden of a shattered friendship and a world on the brink crushing his soul. Darren returned to an Earth in turmoil, hailed as a savior by those who once scorned him. But the accolades tasted like ashes on his tongue, forever tainted by the memory of Lyra's sacrifice. He threw himself into the fight for understanding, campaigning tirelessly to bridge the gap between human and alien. It was a battle with no end in sight, fraught with pain and setbacks. But Darren would not yield. He would carry the torch of hope no matter how heavy, for Lyra, for the dream of a universe where their peoples could clasp hands as brothers. The road ahead was paved with broken glass and the bones of the fallen, but Darren would walk it to the end, the ghost of a noble alien forever at his side. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.